Welcome to Room Service. I'm Sarah Richardson. How would you like to have a family room that's so inviting that no one ever wants to leave? If that's your vision, watch us layer texture and richness into a space with great bones as we add antiques and accessories of just the right proportion. Visit a creator of custom silk lampshades and make measuring for drapes right every time. We're giving family style an English country accent, and it's only on Room Service. I think that when you enter a room for the first time, there is one feature that grabs your attention. Well, in this room, there can be no doubt about it, it's the coffered ceiling. It absolutely sets the tone for the entire room. It's a tone of elegance and real historical significance.
We bought the house about 7 years ago, and we're very lucky to find it because what we were looking for was a house that had never been touched, and we did find a 65-year-old house that had never been renovated.
This is the ideal family room. Great windows on two sides, lots of room for friends and extended family to gather. We've got a fireplace, hardwood floors, lots of bookshelves. There's really nothing more that you could possibly ask for in a room like this other than some comfortable furniture to sit on, which is my next task.
We have a very large extended family with kids ranging in age from toddlers to teens, and we really wanted it to be a place where all of them can feel comfortable, feel relaxed, but still a beautiful room to entertain in.
I'm thinking about a classic setup here. I'd like to see two sofas facing in on each other. This will allow for plenty of seating. You can cram lots of kids on a big oversized sofa. We'll add a couple of chairs in at the top here and a large scale coffee table, something that is definitely elegant and sophisticated, but at the same time is relaxed and allows you to really evoke a family-friendly atmosphere in this room because that's key. Another thing is the colors. We want to think about warm shades, honey and wheat and cognac, working in a neutral palette, but definitely on the warmer side as opposed to the cooler tones. We're gonna have to have something fantastic hanging from the ceiling, a chandelier or a lantern. I'd love it to be an original piece, something antique, so that'll be a good hunt for that. And a rug, just to add softness and again, some warmth. And when we're done, this will be not only elegant and sophisticated, but inviting and definitely the best room in the house. A room that's made for gathering with friends and family easily becomes the center of the entire house, a mosaic of textures and experiences that weave generations together, offering a place of comfort and warmth. We're calling on caramel tones and rich woods to create a backdrop to suit each and every member of the family, a place for boisterous groups and quiet moments of peace and solitude. It's about sharing the experiences that draw us together to create the fabric of family life.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
I always find that every antique store has a specialty. For some, it's French, for some, it's English, and for others, it's Italian. But what I love is a shop that creates a mix of all three, and that's what this little shop is about. It's also chock-a-block full of treasures that I find, such as this. This is an Italian alabaster tazza, and the thing that I love about it is it really has the color palette that I'm going for in our family room. It's going to be really warm, sort of honey tones, caramel colors, and it's going to be so cozy. So this is the type of thing that you could just use. We've got a lot of display space on either side of the fireplace. We're going to have a lot of tables, side tables, that sort of thing. So this is It's a small piece to start with, but I think we're on the right track. Also, here's a pair of lamps. These are vintage. They'd be somewhere around the middle of the 20th century. They've got a little bit of marble inlay around this base. I like the little ball foot, and they have a good chunky proportion, which is important in this space because the room is so big. We're gonna go with more long, low proportions for everything, just so it doesn't feel too tall and spindly. Now, they don't have shades, but I can fix that, and I'm gonna let you in on a secret later on, and I will show you what I can do with these. Now, moving on, one of the things that I wanna point out is that some of the Georgian pieces that you'll see throughout this shop lend themselves really well to being mixed with more contemporary pieces, and that's really the appeal of these pieces at this point in time. People tend to like having that mix. So while there are no contemporary pieces in this shop, you can imagine how well they would coordinate with others. Here's another, I'm back onto accessories now. Look at these. These are actually weights. I used to think that these were a type of small bowling pin, but I was wrong. Again, maybe later on I'll tell you more about these. Jeannie already has a collection, so I'm gonna buy these to add to her collection. Another thing, see, I'm just finding stuff everywhere. Here's a little inlaid box. She also has an inlaid box collection. So look at this, it's got a star sort of motif on the top, and this sort of represents all of the different wood tones that we can work into this interior. Now I have to set these down in order to be able to show you my last find. And this is a pair of tables. They're really nice proportion to be used as side tables beside a sofa, not too high. They have a brass caster at the bottom, and this will go really well with our sofa because I'm going to be putting a caster on that. Also a little banded brass detail here, and the marble is sort of a sandy tone in a honed finish. The perfect complement to the fireplace that's already there. So if I can get this all out of here, we'll get it loaded into the house, and we will be off to making this a superb family room in no time.
Coming up on Room Service, our English country family room starts to come together, and we learn how custom silk shades are created for any lamp.
When you're tackling a big room such as this family room, you need to be patient and remember that sometimes progress comes slowly. We've ordered our furniture, our 2 sofas and 2 chairs, and now it's time to just sit back and wait until they're delivered. In the meantime, we've kept ourselves busy by figuring out some of the key elements for this room. We went out and we found what I consider to be the world's nicest stereo cabinet. This is an antique piece, and the great advantage to it is it has lots of room for storage. There's doors on either side, a couple of drawers, and then it has 2 shelves and plenty of depth for all of the components. This is something that I might want to point out. If you're thinking about getting an antique cabinet, you'll want to make sure that you measure the depth of your largest component from front to back, including the wires, so that you're sure that the piece that you buy actually fits the components and you don't have to go and drill through the back, because that would be a shame. Other things that we've been working on, well, we focused on the artwork, and Jeannie had a collection of family photographs, a really great collection. Some of them were vintage black and white, sort of sepia toned prints, and also a whole collection of prints of the kids and of the family, and they were in color. So what I did was I took the color ones and had them printed up in black and white, and then we've chosen the same frame to go on all of them, a burled frame with sort of a lacquer finish, absolutely beautiful. We're gonna hang them in a number of collections around the room, and they will be a real focal point, and a family room is an ideal place to put family photographs, really intimate and cozy. Other things, I've got some drapery hardware here. The drapes will be going up shortly. We've gone with an antique brass finish, and these really work with all the sort of cognac tones in the room, like this carpet. We've gone with a graphic pattern, sort of checkerboard carpet here, which is really going to fill up the space. We've got some pillows. We've brought in a coffee table. Now, I'm not actually sure that the size is going to work overall when the room is completed. This is something that I'll point out to you. You'll always want to make sure that you make final decisions on things like coffee tables and side tables once you have your furniture in place, just to make sure that those proportions are really right. One other thing I found as I tiptoe through the photographs and not step on them is we came across this lantern. This is an antique lantern. We've had it rewired, and it is going to be suspended from the coffered ceiling. And I am certain this is going to be just one of the many focal points in this room as it becomes an absolutely dazzling space. If you like the soft, neutral look of using a piece of broadloom as an area rug, but are feeling somewhat underwhelmed by this simple serged edge that usually goes along with it, well, here's a suggestion you might want to consider. There's a whole collection of tapestry borders that are available in varying widths, patterns, and sizes. You can usually find them at fabric stores, and then you can take them to either your carpet installer or supplier and have them bound around the outside of your carpet. In order to find out how much you need, just take a perimeter measurement of your carpet, and that will tell you the total yardage that you'll need to create this decorative border, which will in turn add decorative pizzazz to your room.
Atmosphere is everything, and creating it can be as easy as the flick of a switch. We found someone whose passion for beautiful silks in rich colors and textures will help transform our antique lamps into elegant accessories for the family room.
I've been doing lampshades probably since I was about 20. And it all started kind of awkwardly. My sister worked for a company in Montreal, and they made painted lampshades, but they also had the silk ones. But their seamstress was retiring, and they were looking for somebody else. Well, there's not that many people out there who do silk lampshades, so they didn't know what to do. My sister said, well, my sister's pretty handy with a needle and thread, why don't you try her? So they asked me to come in, gave me some lampshades and say, can you figure this out? So that's what I did. I sat down, took them apart, remembered how they were put together, and then worked from there. When people want to have a lampshade made, usually they'll come in with their lamp and they show it to me and go, this is what I've got. My room looks like this or that. And I have some fabric. Sometimes I have fabric. Either it matches their curtains, their couches, or whatever. And they'll ask me, what kind of a shade should I put on there? Now, if you have a chunky lamp like this, you don't want to put a really delicate little shade on it. You need something a bit more substantial like this one.
Matching a shade to a lamp is an exacting process. It's like you're giving the lamp its personality.
Underneath here is an interlining, which you don't see. I put that on there mainly to protect the outside of the fabric from the heat of the bulb. But also when you turn the light on, you don't really want to see the bars. So that helps to just hide the bars a little bit more.
There are so many options to consider when you're having a silk lampshade handmade. Whether it's small pleats or box pleats, beaded fringes or detailed trims, these small details can add so much atmosphere to any room.
The advantages to going to someone who makes silk lampshades is that you can have so many different shapes and sizes and all the different kinds of fabric put on a shade and the different applications put on a shade that you couldn't possibly get in the store.
Next on Room Service, I'll teach you how to measure for drapes in any space.
Class, listen up. We are talking about how to measure for drapes. Now, you may think this is an insignificant thing, but if you're considering installing new drapes in your room, you need to start with the right measurements to get you off on the right foot. Now, you can hire someone to come in and take those measurements for you, but normally a service call costs about $75. So I'm going to teach you how to save that money and put it towards your fabric, which can be expensive, or the labor to make sure that your drapes end up being installed perfectly and the right length. Now, there's a few simple rules of thumb that I follow, and this is a good example of how I like drapes to look when they are installed. I think they look beautiful, and here's what I've done. As far as the rod goes, first of all, you want to figure out how high you want your rod to be. That's the first measurement. What's the height of your drapes? What I do is I take a measurement that is halfway between the top of the frame of the window and the bottom of either the ceiling or the crown molding. Now, this is because I don't like the drapery hardware to be installed directly into the wood trim. I think it's a much cleaner, more sophisticated look if it hangs above the trim. So that's number one. You want that measurement to be halfway between the top of the window and the bottom of either the ceiling or the crown molding. And that will give you the overall height in inches, because that's the way I don't think in metric, of your drapes. Now, what about hem allowances for both the top of the drapes, the header, and the hem? Well, you can add 18 inches, and that will give you enough fabric to turn under and have a nice deep hem, like a 4-inch hem. Now, this is assuming that you want your drapes just to come to the floor. There's a lot of different rules about how long your drapes should be. These drapes come just about a 1/2 inch off the floor, which gives a really clean, sophisticated, and tailored look. A few years ago, it used to be far more popular for drapes to puddle on the floor, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. However, if they are being opened and closed frequently, or if they're by a door, you'll find that your drapes end up acting like a broom and just sweeping the dust. So sometimes people prefer to have them just come to the floor, or maybe just break on the floor. Just a little pointer you might want to keep in mind. So now that we've figured out what our overall height of those drapes is, we need to figure out the width. For the width, I like to do the same thing. Take a measurement from the outside of the trim to the outside of the trim of the window, and then add 6 inches per side if the room allows. That means that you take the width of your window and add 12 inches, and there you have the width of the rod. Now, we've got our height, we've got the width of the rod, but how much fabric do we need to buy? Well, in order to do something like this, which is a French pleat, and most curtain treatments require double fullness in fabric. That means that it gives you enough coverage when the drapes are closed that it has a really full look and it has enough fabric. If you go with only 1.5 times fullness, it can sometimes look skimpy and you just don't get that same curving and sort of rippling and folding of the fabric. So you want double fullness, which means that let's say my rod was 100 inches long. I would multiply that by 2 for my double fullness, which gives me 200 inches. Now, how many panels is that? Well, fabric is generally 54 inches wide, and there is a selvage edge down either side that you're going to want to cut off. So once you take that into consideration, you're left with about 50 inches, which means that if I take my 200 measurement, divide it by 50, I'm left with 4 panels to cover the width of my window. Now that means that I take 4 panels times the overall height, and that will tell me how much fabric I need in inches to make the most beautiful, spectacular drapes of my dreams.
You may think these look like antique bowling pins, but they're actually Indian clubs, which evolved from war clubs used in ancient India. Over time, Indian clubs became popular as a form of exercise. In the 19th century, the British Army in India adopted these for their own calisthenics routines. Before long, choreographed Indian club swinging was all the rage in England and America. They're lovely sculptural objects with a story to tell, and these days, Indian clubs feature beautifully in any traditional interior. Next on Room Service, cozy up in our English country family room.
I always love to look at a room when it's finished and think back to what the very first decision that was made in the room was. And I have to tell you that in this room, it all started with the paisley fabric. Now, this is something that I found, and we ended up building the entire room around it, if you can believe it, which may seem insignificant because there's only 4 pillows and there's paisley fabric in the entire room. But we loved all of the rich colors that were in this fabric. So there is sort of ochre and rust shades that we then brought out and used on all of the accent pillows, on the sofa here, on the pair of chairs. So we've brought in lots of texture and richness with the accessories.
The colors, the furniture, the light fixture is spectacular. We love everything. It's just so beautiful.
I'm sure that you've noticed that a lot's happened since the last time we were all here together. Well, now that the furniture has arrived, you can see that there's plenty of room for seating for a big family. We went with our 2 sofas facing each other. Now, some people call these a Charles of London arm, other people call it a William Birch arm. I call it the best choice if you want to have English country style. I love it for a number of reasons. First, it doesn't take up a whole lot of space in a room. So while this room felt huge when it was empty, once you put all of the different elements of furniture into it, it feels much more intimate. And since it doesn't have a large roll in the arm, it doesn't take up a lot of space. The other thing I love about it is ideal for afternoon naps. And let's face it, that's what a family room's all about. It has a tight back, which means that it's perfect for accenting with lots of pillows. I often find if you go for a loose back sofa and then add pillows on top of it, it's just altogether too many pillows. So this has 3 humps on the back, which creates a nice sort of sculptural curve as it sets off against this window with our drapes hanging in behind. When it came to choosing chairs that went along with it, I decided to go for something, again, without a large arm. These have a nice sweep to them as well, a different style, slightly more contemporary in feeling than what's on these sofas, but all of the colors and the textures work together. We wanted to layer a number of different fabrics. So we have the color that's on the wall as sort of a starting ground, and then the fabrics that we've used, we have that sort of linen blend on our drapes. This is a chenille with almost, it almost has a tussa silk weave look to it on the sofa here. Then we have a menswear inspired plaid that's on our chairs, and then all of the textures that are introduced through our fabrics. And it's really all about details in this room. So you'll notice that I could not resist those marble top tables that I found when I was out shopping, or the lamps, or just about anything else I saw in that fabulous store. And you'll notice that the marble is the perfect color offset against the fireplace. Another little detail that I have to point out is all of the little bits of brass, the rings around the top of the leg, and at the base of the leg you'll see there's a brass caster. We went for the same thing on the sofas, an exposed wood leg with a brass caster, and again it appears on this oval coffee table. Now we decided to go for a coffee table that wasn't too large in this room. We wanted to keep some floor space open so that little kids would have a place to sit if there's lots of adults gathering around for a family affair in this room. Other details, little finishing touches, well, the lampshades, these silk lampshades that are now on all of our lamps, just add that feeling of warmth and a bit of sophistication to the room.
It's spectacular. It's warm, it's comfortable, and it's so inviting that once you're in there, you just never want to leave, and that's exactly what we were hoping to achieve.
Make no mistake about it, this room is elegant, but it is also family-friendly, relaxed, and inviting at the same time. I'm Sarah Richardson, and I hope you'll join me next time on Room Service.